The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation promotes, preserves, and perpetuates music, culture, and heritage through programs, cultural, educational, and economic activities year-round. Learn more at jazzandheritage.org. This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area. Steppin Out is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
Whether it's the latest museum exhibit, the newest restaurant, or the current hot play,
we appreciate the weekly updates on the arts, music, and entertainment. Let's step out.
I'm Peggy Scott Laborde, and welcome to Steppin Out, with updates from the local restaurant, arts, and entertainment scenes. Joining me, Jasmine Robinson. For the first time, she's making her debut. And of course, she covers the cultural economy beat for Verite News, and that is a nonprofit digital news organization. Welcome, Jasmine.
Hi, happy to be here.
Great, I'm glad you're here. Poppy Tucker, with an exclamation point, host of Louisiana Eats on WWNO Radio. Hey, Miss Poppy, hey. And he's back, Mark Cave, Senior Historian Curator for the Historic New Orleans Collection, here to discuss a new exhibit at the collection. Welcome, sir.
Thank you.
And Alan Smason, editor of the Crescent City Jewish News and theatercriticism.com. And before we begin, we have some congratulations. First of all, Poppy, on her recent really lovely profile by Jan Risher in the Times-Picayune, the New Orleans Advocate. And so well deserved, and of course that's a half of it, because there's a whole other jump, part of it. But congratulations to you, really very nicely done. And also congrats to Mr. Allen for winning not one, but 2 Simon Rockhour Awards for excellence in Jewish journalism for editorial commentaries and a feature article, and it's a national awards. Welcome.
Yeah,
congratulations.
Congratulations.
All right, Poppy, Empanola is popping up all over.
What a lovely family business this is. It's all family. Began back in 2017 with a little booth at St. Roch Market.
Wow.
And oh, have they grown and succeeded since then. The international flair is not accidental, because Jimena and her brother, Javier Urrutia, and there's also then Jimena's husband, Marcelo, and the sister-in-law, Giada Visicali, she's from Italy. Jimena and Javier are from Argentina. Marcelo is from Peru. Oh, my goodness. The sister-in-law makes the dough, which of course is so important in a little hand pie. But Marcelo, Jimena's husband, what a magician. Now, they've done so well with this business that they opened on Verite in 2018. Then by 2021, they were opening on Magazine Street. Now they're on St. Anne. But what blows me away is I love a New Orleans company that successfully exports, and they have franchises now.
Wow.
Now in both Mobile and Biloxi. Now, why they're so successful? Because they're so delicious. I don't know. I was a little bit of a food snob.
I know we have photos from some of the places around town. Yeah.
Well, I was a little skeptical. Gumbo. How could you get gumbo in an empanada? Well, that Marcelo is so brilliant. The essence of gumbo is what comes out. A muffalata in an empanada. I was puzzled with Asian dumpling. What could that mean? You take a bite and that's all you can taste. It's a great, great product. And they even have breakfast flavors like eggs and bacon. They have dessert empanadas like guava cheese and pecan apple pie. Their special sauces, cilantro, lime, chimichurri, and hot sauce. And they do catering too.
Ooh.
Yes, you can pre-order, and they have little empanadas. What if it, and it's a brilliant thing that every one of the empanadas is stamped with the name, because it would be so confusing if you had a tray of them otherwise.
That's for sure.
So, King Brasserie is a place I want everybody to be thinking about during the summer, because they're in the Kimpton on Tchoupitoulas, right at Poydras, and that talented chef Samuel Perry and the pastry chef Lana Turner are doing the most delicious things.
I love it.
She
It's great.
is such a talented bread maker. Don't miss the bread service, but a perfect example of the beautiful work. Look at the garden peas and burrata with little gem lettuce. There's pistachio pesto, and there's extra virgin avocado oil. Whoever heard of that? But anyway, and that's complete with Chef Lana's rosemary garlic biscuit on the barbecued shrimp peg. That is one of the best versions in town. The grilled octopus I love with braised chickpeas and the sauce bergère, and the lacquered duck leg with blackberries. Oh my goodness, is it beautiful. There's something for everybody. The Gulf fish gets a great presentation with amandine and haricot vert and fingerling potatoes, and Lana comes through with a carrot cake for dessert that has apricot jam, a carrot apricot coulis. What they're doing there is they're just channeling all the best flavors of the Mediterranean Riviera, France, Italy. It's all on the plates there at King Brasserie.
Great. Thank you very much. That's a very pretty dessert, too,
Oh,
isn't it?
it was delicious.
Did you say pesto?
Yes, a
They-
pistachio pesto.
Oh, okay. Because I heard they have
Oh.
a certain man who comes, but the pesto man always rings twice.
Okay. Thank you, Alan. And turning to Jasmine. Jasmine, you had a fascinating article
Thank
online.
you.
I guess we can still say article, your story. Okay.
Absolutely.
But just talking about concerts and who's coming and kind of not coming these days in terms of the big names, and why some of them, it doesn't make sense for them to come. Could you please explain?
Yeah, so I guess I can start by talking about how I came across this story. So back in May, Lil Wayne had released his tour dates for his upcoming concert this summer. And before I even saw all of the dates and the shows, I saw people online complaining about the fact that he didn't have a stop in New Orleans or Louisiana at all, which is kind of strange because, you know, he's a very proud New Orleans native, and you know, to not have a concert date, you know, it had people asking questions. And, you know, a lot of people sort of speculated that, oh, you know, he's upset with New Orleans because he was snubbed as the Super Bowl halftime performer this year. But I knew that it had to be something a little bit beyond that. And in my reporting, you know, I found that there are tons of reasons why New Orleans just isn't as attractive as a market for touring artists. And yeah, you know, a lot of it comes down to, you know, is this the right financial decision to make? Because when artists are organizing a tour, you know, all parties, they are taking a financial risk between the artists and their management, promoters, and the venue themselves especially are all taking a financial risk in this process. So there's a lot of different aspects to it, but I think one of the most interesting things that I found is that, you know, New Orleans obviously has this reputation as being a very music-heavy city, very musical reputation. But I think, you know, the ticket buying market in New Orleans doesn't really live up to that. And I think that's because the city is so saturated with live music everywhere. I mean, between so many festivals, so many smaller clubs where you can see free or, you know, low-cost shows, and then obviously you have street performers. So it's like, if you want to see good music, you don't have to pay hundreds of dollars.
And he had just been, speaking of Lil Wayne, he had just been at the Jazz Fest.
Exactly,
So there was an opportunity to see him there.
Yeah.
But tickets are expensive too, aren't they?
Very expensive, yeah.
You know, and now, Taylor Swift is a bit of an exception because that ends up, as you pointed out in your article, being more, that was a destination thing too, wasn't it, for a lot of people?
Absolutely.
To come to New Orleans.
Yeah, it was sort of just the epitome of the fact that, you know, New Orleans is a destination for people to come see concerts. You know, during last fall, I believe, during her Eras tour, she had like a little mini residency in the city. She had 3 shows, and across those 3 shows, she sold 200,000 tickets, and 160,000 of those were people coming from outside the metro area. So that just goes to show, you know, when it comes to those larger shows, especially, a majority of concert goers do not live in the city.
Yeah, that's so interesting. But really, the cost of tickets. I know some people even complain about the Jazz Fest, like a day ticket, that it's getting more. Even though I think that's the deal. All the different bands you see, I think that's really.
I agree.
But it's still, I think, you know, New Orleans by and large, it's a lot of money sometimes for those concert tickets as well. Huh?
Yeah, absolutely. And you have to take into consideration the fact that, you know, New Orleans as a ticket buying market is maybe not as, you know, attractive for artists because, you know, you start to think about things like even income levels in the city, and the poverty rate in New Orleans is about 22%. So that's a big chunk of people.
And quickly, you had mentioned the Howlin' Wolf. That was a venue for a lot of concerts over the years, and you had interviewed the gentleman who owns it. And he's not having as many concerts anymore, huh?
Yeah, and you know, it's really complicated when it comes to those smaller venues because there are so many of them in New Orleans. There are about 100 in New Orleans, so there's already a lot of competition between them to book artists. And as I mentioned earlier, you know, it's a huge financial risk for these venues to book artists, especially when they're paying them up front. And, you know, you start to factor in things like, you know, the New Orleans as a ticket buying market is not being as viable, and, you know, can the artists and the promoters, can they sell these tickets? And, you know, like I said, it's just a huge risk for these venues.
Well, to read more of Jasmine's work, of course, veritenews.org.
Yes.
And we're so excited to have you with us, too.
Thank you.
Thank you. And turning to Mr. Mark, and oh my goodness, Mark, what a great idea to celebrate. It's hard to believe that it's been 50 years since the fall of Vietnam, and you know, and of course, the term boat people. I mean, that is, you know, this incredible exodus, and the coming to New Orleans of thousands of Vietnamese. Tell us about how you all came up with the concept of doing the exhibit.
Well, we've been working on it for about 10 years.
Wow.
In 2015, we did a survey of our holdings, and we realized we didn't have hardly anything on the Vietnamese community. And so we set about to collect life stories of elders in that community. And we worked with Mary Queen of Vietnam Church and conducted 25 life stories with senior members of the community. And this exhibition that we did is based on those initial life stories. We've been adding to it over the past decade and have really built a great collection of stories. But then, of course, we had to gather things from the community that sort of represented these experiences. And the year before last, we acquired Mark Sindler's photographic archive.
Who's been chronicling for so long, yes.
Yeah, he moved into the Versailles Arms Apartments in 1978 and began—
in Eastern New Orleans?
Yeah, and began to document their adaptation to American culture, and produced over 15,000 photographic negatives.
And he used to work for the Louisiana State Museum for many years, wasn't he? Yeah.
And so we had our interview transcripts, and we had these 15,000 photos. And so we kind of went through the stories, and then we tried to find on the contact sheets of Mark's photos comparables, things that represented the experience of the people that we were trying to.
And just in case, you know, for someone who's new to the city, it was because of the Catholic Church.
Yeah.
Many of the Vietnamese community, of course, are Catholic. And so many were settled by the Catholic Church. And it was interesting because it ended up being primarily in Eastern New Orleans and also on the West Bank, wasn't it?
There was a woman named Elise Cerniglia, and she kind of was in charge of the Catholic Charities Resettlement Bureau. And she had grown up in Cuba and really developed the Catholic Charities Resettlement Bureau the decade before in order to bring in Cuban refugees. And so when the fall of Saigon happened, we had this really well-developed system for the intake.
So the template was there.
Yeah, it was already there, and that's one of the reasons why we have so many Vietnamese people here, is that she had a well-developed system and then had all of these Cuban volunteers to help her do the work. I think they saw something similar in the Vietnamese experience to their own experience. And she also had sort of a different idea about resettlement. I think in other parts of the country, the idea was to put Vietnamese families in American neighborhoods to sort of force a quicker adaptation to American society. She felt that they would do better in clusters, and so she focused resettlement in areas like the Versailles Arms Apartments in the east and the Woodlawn Estates complex on the West Bank. And so that, I think, was very attractive to people who ended up in isolated American neighborhoods in other parts of the country. So if they had a relative down here, they said, let's move to New Orleans, it's warm weather, and we can speak Vietnamese.
And Poppy, we could go on for days, of course, about the Vietnamese, the culinary contribution.
The incredible influence. I mean, who knew? The French bread gives New Orleans poor boy bread a run for its money.
Dong Fong, and yes, absolutely. Yeah. Well, congratulations.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, and of course it's up through October the 5th, and y'all have been and one thing we should just point out once again, if you're new to the city, to go to this exhibit, the Historic New Orleans Collection, all their incredible holdings, it's free. Now, if you want a guided tour, that might be a little bit extra, but it's actually free. That is the deal, 520 Royal, this particular part of your campus. I love that term now because you all have, thankfully, beautiful, numerous buildings. But the old Channel 6 for some of us, we should point out. But congratulations, Mark. I know you've been working hard on this, too. Alan Smason,
yes, let's tell a story, Peggy.
Let's tell a story. Yes, very good. Let's tell a story.
So before we move on to the upcoming productions, I wanted to take time out to really acknowledge the amazing job done by all of the performers at the recent Summer Lyric Theater's production of A Chorus Line. There's really little doubt that this is one of the finest productions of that show to grace a local stage, and was about as good as it could be. For a 50-year-old show to still resonate like it's today, is a commentary on how good the original work was and really how universal it is in its intact and impact. I should tell you that Michael Paternostro, who was featured in the revival on Broadway, that was several years ago, brought a lot of authenticity to his role of the director, Zach. But right there with him, trading punch for punch, was Jeanne Buisson as Cassie. Right there on the left, she's willing to go back in the line to be a part of a Broadway show. Of course, she was the director and the choreographer. Also of note was Leslie Clavery as Sheila, a veteran of Broadway shows who was rather independent. Leslie, of course, was great, and the ensemble of supporting players were terrific. I should mention that she and her husband Keith lost Keith's father this past week, so we of course want to send out our condolences. Jeanne did a magnificent job with the choreography, as evidenced by the photo you just saw of all the male dancers. And after the show, I caught up with Michael. He was just so pleased to see the show going on. Jeanne and Leslie Clavery next, watching, from the sidelines was her husband Keith. And as the adage shows, the show must go on. So we hope that all the Claverys will get past this very, very difficult time. And speaking of family, Savannah Fucci was featured in the cast right on the left. And so her mom, Kelly Fucci, took time out to see her daughter perform just as rehearsals for Annie are now getting underway at Rivertown. Again, we want to remind everybody about Summer Lyric. Leslie Castay is the next director. She's going to be directing Company, the groundbreaking show by Stephen Sondheim that is now 55 years old. And Leslie will, as I said, be directing, but the choreography will be handled by Caitlin Zellin right there. It's strongly suggested that you can get tickets now to Company because it had several of the last week. We had several sellouts due to a likely possibility that will be a repeat this time out. Company runs from July the 10th through the 13th. And also starting on that same night will be the very first production of Cat on a Hot Tin Roof by Tennessee Williams, as put on by the Tennessee Williams Theater Company of New Orleans. This will star Rebecca Hollingsworth as Maggie the Cat. Randy Sheramy will also portray Big Daddy with Margot Fanning as Big Mama. Monica Harris will portray May. And the play will be directed by Augustin Carrero, of course, who's one of the artistic directors there, along with Nick Shackelford. Meanwhile, there's about 1 month left to see Pirates, the recent revival that is a send-up of Gilbert and Sullivan's The Pirates of Penzance. This one is about as different as you can imagine. British playwright and composer Rupert Holmes, who you'll remember from The Mystery of Edwin Drood, or maybe you remember him for the Pina Colada song Escape, he reset this where? In New Orleans. So this show stars Ramin Karimloo, who was just in Funny Girl on Broadway and also did Phantom of the Opera, and the follow-up, Love Never Dies, if you remember that. He was in that on the film. David Hyde Pierce, we remember him from Frasier. He also is the modern Major General. They're going to have a little bit of a review on this next week because I'm going to Broadway to see it. So I want everybody to know that. It's that time of year when we also will be going on search for the next Stage Door Idol. Last year, Lloyd Meekins was the second male to win the title. And again, Lloyd will be on hand as the competition starts on Tuesday, July the 15th at BB's Stage Door Canteen at the National World War II Museum. I will be a judge on July the 29th. That's the third week of the competition. Here's a photo from last year's judging. There you see Leslie Castet, Claire Conti, and again, I hope that everybody gets a chance to get out there. It's about $5, I think, to go in to see it.
It's fun.
And it is a lot of fun and very competitive. I'm going to tell you, whoever gets Stage Door Idol is worthy of that title because they have to go through a lot to get to it. So again, check that out at the Stage Door Idol, BB Stage Door Canteen.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. And now it's time for our picks of the week. Poppy.
Tomorrow night, don't miss the Tammany Taste of Summer preview at the Harbor Center in Slidell. There'll be food from 15 local chefs, and the Louisiana Seafood Cook-Off is going to be held at the same time. And Tuesday, head to the Quarter for National Pimm's Cup Day at the Napoleon House. Napoleon himself will be there, savoring champagne. There's a Napoleon look-alike contest at 11 a.m.
Wow.
And then in the afternoon, a history tour from 4 to 5, Pimm's Happy Hour from 4 to 6, where you can buy one, get one free.
Very good. Alan?
Well, I'm trying to get in the mood for this Napoleon thing, if you know what I mean. Saturday night, the New Orleans Shakespeare Festival will present a very unusual, unprompted Shakespeare. And what this is they go over the play early on in the day, and they learn it really by heart, going off book at night. The unprompted King Lear will be presented Saturday night, June the 28th, at the Lupin Theater, the Dixon Hall Annex. Tickets are just $40, and I'll see you at the theater.
I'm looking forward to Midsummer Night's Dream coming up in a few weeks, too.
That's true.
It's
That's
going to be
true.
a lot of fun. Thank you. Now, my picks, the Animal Rescue Center of New Orleans has opened a facility, the Paulette and Frank Stewart Family Animal Center in Elmwood, with lots of festivities on Saturday, an open house from 2 to 5, with the ribbon cutting at 2. It's 160 Brook Hollow Esplanade. That's the street name, okay, in Elmwood, and it's near the Red, White, and Blue thrift store, and if that helps at all, and Hickory. But AnimalRescueNewOrleans.org, very nonprofit group and doing a lot of good. God bless them. Well, tonight, darlings, I am wearing jewelry by one of my favorite designers. This is Patrice McMurray with my earrings and my, I love
so
this. Santa
pretty.
has been very good over the years. Here we go. And the necklace. She is having a rare summer clearance sale on Saturday from 11 a.m. till 1 p.m. at 949 Harding Drive. Contact her if you need to at Patrice@cox.net, or you can just go there, or the phone number that's on your screen for details. But Harding is between Dumaine and Moss Streets near City Park. The band Chiwis and fiddler, singer Amanda Shaw are headlining Saturday's Slidell Heritage Fest at Heritage Park in Slidell, and you can go to slidellheritagefest.org for all the details. It's just $15. On Thursday, another favorite thing, the Marine Forces Reserve Band will perform starting at 6 p.m. for the 3rd of July concert at City Park. The Waldenburg Great Lawn is a perfect setting for a picnic. Bring chairs, and we also want to acknowledge, finally, very sad, the Clarion Herald Catholic newspaper's final edition will be available at churches this weekend. It's hard to believe, 63 years of service. We will very much miss that, and all our best to Peter Finney Jr. and his staff for all their hard work. Before we leave, though, just a quick, what are you working on these days in terms of articles?
Ooh, okay. So right now I am working on a story, sort of like a preview story for Essence Fest coming up weekend after next, and I'm going to be looking at the economic impact of Black women, because their main audience is Black women essences, and they bring a lot to the city during the summer slump.
Well, the other thing is some people don't even realize, I think of Essence, of course, is lots of music, of course, and lots of big headliners, but also there are a lot of empowerment lectures.
Yeah, so they have a bunch of panels and, different lectures and things like that
And
that
those
are going
I
on.
think those are free.
Yeah, those are
actually,
free
too.
in the convention center, and then all the concerts are happening in the Superdome.
Very good. And what are you working on these days?
Well, I'm working on a couple of oral history projects. We're doing one on the January 1st terror attacks, so I've been interviewing people related to that. And then also one on riverfront development in the early 1980s, which has been really fascinating. So lots of different things.
Yeah. Well, also, every once in a while, somebody knocks on the door and donates stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Some cool stuff, right?
Yeah. And we're getting things all the time. Every week we get something.
I have to say, just sort of previewing, because I know it's not until next year, but I'm looking forward to the Bunny Matthews, the cartoonist Bunny Matthews exhibit, and a book by Michael Tisserand, huh?
It's going to be a great exhibition. We've got, thousands of items. We acquired Bunny Matthews' archive 2 years ago, and we've been working on the book now for 3 or 4 years.
And I'm real excited because Bunny, you all might remember this, but for many years we would do a Vic and Natalie cartoon. Every week we actually had voices of Vic and Natalie, and many of those originals were donated to the collection. So I heard a rumor that maybe they might be revitalized with some voices.
Maybe.
Doing some. We'll see what happens. Fingers crossed. Thank you all so much. Glad that you were on. Thank you all. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.
Programming on WYES is made possible in part by Susie and Pierre G. Villery.
From Masterpiece to Nova, Antiques Roadshow to Agatha Christie.
And of course, Steppin Out and Informed Sources.
We are pleased to support public television
It's been our passion.
for a lifetime.
The New Orleans Jazz and Heritage Foundation promotes, preserves, and perpetuates music, culture, and heritage through programs, cultural, educational, and economic activities year-round. Learn more at jazzandheritage.org. This program is brought to you in part by the Eugenie and Joseph Jones Family Foundation, a local foundation proud to support education, the arts, and culture in the greater New Orleans area.